Okay, let's unpack this. Forget complicated setups or, lengthy introductions. Today, we're diving headfirst into a world where you wash ashore with literally nothing.
Nothing at all.
But the ambition to build a life, a community, and ultimately, well, a powerful dynasty in feudal Japan.
That's the core fantasy, isn't it? And the game we're exploring today is Sengoku Dynasty. It's a really interesting mix, actually.
Yeah.
Pulling from what we've seen in the source material, everything from player discussions and detailed guides to official news, it blends open-world exploration with village building, life simulation, survival mechanics, even RPG progression. It's got a lot going on.
It's quite the stew of genres, and that's exactly what we're here to do in this deep dive. Take all that source material and give you the shortcut. Our mission is to get you quickly well-informed on how this game actually works.
Right.
The key systems and some of the, surprising details that make it tick, starting from that very first desperate moment on the beach.
Absolutely. The journey, based on the sources, it begins with you arriving in the Nida Valley, facing immediate challenges just to survive.
You're starting at absolute zero. So the first thing you need to figure out is basic survival. This means scrounging for initial resources. Think gathering simple things you find on the ground, sticks, stones, and especially plants. The sources point out things like gobo and various grasses are surprisingly crucial early on.
They really are, not just for food, but for crafting basic materials later.
Right.
And don't overlook the little statues you might find statos or Yuho figures while you can't build with them. The sources note these are sellable resources, so it's an early way to acquire coin.
Coin is always good, always. So you've got some basic bits. What's next? Tools.
Exactly. Crafting essential tools. You need a hammer to build, obviously, a stone axe for wood, and then a stone pickaxe once you start looking for minerals.
And there's a really smart tip from the sources about getting a jump start too, right?
Oh, yeah.
Apparently, you can find burned out buildings scattered around early on and salvage them for resources you might otherwise struggle to get right away.
Yes. That's a key early efficiency game. Things like charcoal and finished planks, really helpful.
Nice.
And you're not completely alone in this harsh world. The sources mention starting with a companion, like Akko, who travels with you and can eventually become one of your first villagers.
Oh, and for anyone who finds the building process a bit slow, I saw one source pointed out there's an optional setting to speed up building time.
That's right. Which is a nice quality of life touch, depending on your preference.
Could be very handy.
Definitely helpful when you realize just how much building is involved. Speaking of building, a major early decision highlighted is choosing your first village location strategically.
Okay, where should you look?
Well, the sources suggest areas like Sogi because they offer that crucial balance.
Yeah.
Access to basic resources nearby, proximity to a merchant to sell those early items.
Like the statues.
Exactly, and convenience for later fast travel once you establish your village bell. Location matters.
Okay, so you've survived the immediate crisis, found a companion, scattered a good spot, and crafted some basic tools. The next big phase is actually putting down roots, laying the foundation for your first village.
This starts with your core buildings. The sources break down houses by size: basic for 2 people, standard for 4, and large for 6.
Okay.
But a critical detail, though. You have to build enough beds inside the house to reach that maximum capacity.
Okay. So more beds equal more potential villagers in that structure.
Precisely. It's not just the house shell.
That's good to know. But then you need storage, right? Immediately.
Absolutely essential. The general storage building is key early on because, as the name suggests, it's where you can store, anything. Is your central inventory hub before you get more specialized storage options later.
Got it. And production. How do you start getting resources efficiently for building? Because chopping trees one by one seems slow.
The workshop is vital here. It processes logs into planks, and this is where efficiency really kicks in early. The sources highlight that using a workshop gets you 6 planks per log.
6?
Yeah, compared to just 3 if you try to process logs manually with an axe.
Wow, okay. Doubling your output makes that workshop a priority.
Huge difference in resource management when you're starting out.
So once you have these buildings, you need people to work them. How does that work? Assigning jobs?
Yep. You assign your villagers to specific job buildings. For example, the woodcutter's hut for chopping logs and processing them into planks.
Makes sense.
But the sources note that workers need tools like a stone axe for the woodcutter to actually produce anything. They don't just magically make stuff.
Right. Tools are needed. And the forager's hut, what do they collect?
They gather various materials from the environment. The sources specifically call out grass as a critical resource for foragers.
Grass.
Yeah, because grass is used to make straw, and straw is needed for making beds and roofs on many buildings. So that early grass gathering becomes crucial for village expansion later.
It all links together. Okay, what about keeping everyone fed and watered? The basics.
Early on, you'll be cooking simple meals. Your first house usually has a sunken hearth you can use. Sources mention early options like cooked gobo or cooked eggs.
Cooked eggs are good.
Apparently particularly good for the player character, yeah. You can also mix any vegetable with any herb you find to make simple vegetable meals. Pretty flexible.
Okay. And water, just grab it from a river.
Initially, yeah, you'll gather it manually with a bucket, but a well is definitely needed for a sustainable water supply for a growing village. Can't keep running back to the river forever.
Right, right. So once you have people, homes, jobs, food, and water, you're basically managing a miniature society.
Precisely. And this involves assigning villagers their homes and their jobs. An interesting detail is that workers produce their daily output at the end of the day, regardless of when you assign them.
Oh, really? So you can assign them late and still get the goods.
Seems so. You can get a full day's work even if you assign them late in the day. It's a useful mechanic to know.
Definitely. The sources also talk about citizen happiness, shown by an emoji face, happy, middling, or sad. How important is that?
Right, and it's pretty important. Neglecting their needs, food, water, heating later on will lower their happiness, and that leads to lackluster production.
So unhappy workers don't work as well.
Exactly. Managing that happiness is a core part of the village management loop. Keep them happy, keep them working.
Okay, establishing that first village is a huge step, clearly. But the game has a much grander scope, right? This is where the dynasty and daimyo systems come in.
Exactly. The core progression goal is the dynasty system. This isn't just about like your character's level in the traditional sense. It's the overarching story of your rise to power, your family's legacy.
Okay. And you increase your dynasty level by gaining dynasty XP. How do you get that XP?
By doing things that build your power and influence. Constructing buildings, recruiting new citizens to your villages, and completing projects and quests you find out in the world.
So your actions directly feed into your dynasty's growth. Makes sense.
Yeah.
What does raising your dynasty level actually do for you? Perks.
Yes, exactly. It unlocks access to new perks and upgrades that benefit both you and your village. The sources confirm that your dynasty level essentially is your character's overall level in the system, granting you new abilities and improvements.
Got it. Dynasty level is your measure of overall progress and unlocks new stuff. And you mentioned it works hand in hand with this daimyo system.
Yes, the daimyo system adds a strategic layer focused on the world map. It's about liberating different regions from enemies and their leaders who control them. Bandits, looters, that sort of thing.
Liberating regions. And what's the benefit of doing that? Why bother?
Multiple things, actually. It increases your standing with local NPCs in that area, makes them friendlier, and crucially, it grants you access to unique resources that are only found in those liberated regions. These unique resources are key because they allow you to build more advanced structures and further develop your villages beyond the basic tier.
So liberating regions fuels your village growth by unlocking new materials.
Pretty much. Though the sources also make it clear you can focus more on the story and settlement building aspects if combat isn't your primary interest. There's some flexibility there.
That flexibility is nice.
Yeah.
Where can you track all this progress? Your villagers, your dynasty level, the regions, everything.
There's a dedicated dynasty tab in your menu. This is your central hub. It shows your dynasty level, a list of all your villagers, how many villages you have.
Okay.
Lets you set production priorities, assign people to homes and jobs, and check on everyone's happiness levels. It's your command center.
And as your dynasty grows, can you expand beyond that first village, like set up multiple settlements?
Absolutely. The sources mention the ability to establish a second village and the practicality of being able to move villagers between your settlements as needed to balance labor or specialize.
Cool. Are there longer-term goals for the dynasty system mentioned? Stuff way down the line.
Yeah, the sources hint at things like marriage and children being potential future elements, though maybe not fully fleshed out yet. And definitely the need for more specialized storage buildings as your production chains become more complex.
Like needing a specific place for wood, another for food.
Exactly. And attracting merchants to your villages is also mentioned as a sign of growth and a way to access goods you can't make yourself easily.
It sounds like the game scales up significantly from just basic survival. Let's talk more about the details that support this growth. The resources, the crafting, and player skills.
Right. Beyond the initial gathering, you unlock more complex resource acquisition and crafting. Fishing, for instance, provides raw fish.
Okay, food.
Well, yes, but importantly, it can be processed into oil. The sources emphasize oil becomes a vital resource later for heating needs once you have more villagers to keep warm through winter, maybe.
Ah, heating. Didn't think about that.
Yeah, it's a survival aspect. Building a fishing hut requires placing it partly in water and uses significant resources, so it's an investment.
Farming must be key for food sustainability too, I imagine.
Definitely. It requires building a land field, having a hoe, and seeds. Rice seed bags are mentioned specifically in the sources. For water fields, like for rice, you'll also need clay.
Clay. Where do you get that early on?
It might seem tricky, but the sources hint at clever ways to access it, maybe through certain terrain or those resource nodes we'll talk about. And effective farming later might also involve composting or buying fertilizer. It gets more involved.
Right. And how do you get metals for better tools and weapons?
Through mining, that's where you'll find stone, and later copper, tin, iron, steel, and bronze. A fascinating detail from the sources is a potential early way to get bronze.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Even without the full tech unlocked, apparently completing the Endura Watchtower project and using a shovel on specific resource nodes nearby can yield it.
Huh. That suggests quest rewards and exploration can offer shortcuts or bypass tech requirements sometimes.
Exactly. That's a great example of an insight tucked away in the sources. Exploration pays off.
Definitely. What are some other notable crafts or items mentioned? What kind of stuff are you making?
Oh, the list is pretty extensive. It really shows the depth of the craft system. You'll be making everything from katanas for combat
Of course.
to straw from that early grass we talked about, hemp and flax for textiles, leather, though the sources note this is typically a later game resource needing a tanning vat.
Okay. Takes work.
Sake, ice, which implies temperature mechanics mattering, cooking pots, incense burners for maybe happiness or monk stuff. For combat, bows and arrows are crucial.
Bows break.
Bows break, yeah, so you need to keep making new ones or repairing them. Arrows are key, too. Wooden yari, the spears, are described as weak and slow early on.
So maybe not the best starting weapon.
Probably not. You'll also craft various tools like adze, hoes for farming, and shovels. Shovels are useful not just for those special resource nodes like the bronze one, but also for digging up tree stumps, which, interestingly, allows those trees to regrow if you want a renewable forest near your base, or just clears the land.
Oh, neat. So many things to build and manage. All these activities must feed into a skill system, right?
Yeah,
You get better at stuff?
they do. You earn different types of experience based on what you're doing. Craftsman XP comes from gathering and building. Pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Warrior XP comes from combat, obviously. And Monk XP is earned from interacting with shrines, completing specific quests, and doing repair tasks around the place.
Monk XP sounds a bit different.
Yeah. The sources note that monk experience tends to be slower to gain compared to the others, so you have to work for those monk perks.
And earning that XP unlocks perks. What kind of perks?
Yes, perks provide various buffs and abilities. The sources give examples like gaining extra stamina, always useful.
Always.
Finding better loot, improving your building speed as a skilled constructor, unlocking combat moves like sprint attacks, parries, quick and powerful attacks.
Combat moves. Okay.
Getting more space in your inventory stash, another big one, or increasing your bow damage. Lots of ways to customize your progression.
Definitely. Stamina and inventory space always sound like top priorities in these kinds of games.
Absolutely.
Speaking of getting around the world, it sounds like a big map. How does travel work across large distances?
The sources mention travel outposts. Once you find and likely activate them, they function as fast travel points.
Ah, good old fast travel.
Yeah, allows you to quickly move between different areas you've explored, saving a lot of running time.
You touched on warrior XP and combat perks. What's the feel of combat actually like? Is it just hack and slash?
Doesn't sound like it. Combat involves both bows and arrows for range and various melee weapons. According to one source, the combat prototype is inspired by Soulsborne games.
Oh, really? So like blocking and dodging.
Yeah, incorporating mechanics like blocking, countering, and evading attacks. So it sounds like it requires a bit more timing and tactics than just swinging wildly. When you defeat enemies like looters and bandits, you can loot them for coins and items like healing salves, burn ointment was mentioned, or scrolls.
Scrolls. Like for skills or lore?
Could be either. The sources weren't super specific. And importantly, defeating specific looters contributes to liberating regions within that Demi system we discussed. So combat ties back into world progression.
Right, it all connects. Okay, that gives us a really comprehensive picture of the moment-to-moment gameplay and the larger progression arcs. Let's zoom out a bit and talk about the game itself, the world it's set in, and some of the technical details.
Right. As we've established, the game is set in feudal Japan, and that setting isn't just window dressing. The sources suggest it tries to offer insights into the social structure, craftsmanship, and economic systems of the period as you play and build your society.
So it aims to be more than just a generic building game. It's rooted in that specific time and place.
That seems to be the goal, yeah.
Right.
Trying to capture some of that historical flavor.
And it looks quite striking, doesn't it, from the footage I've seen?
It does. The game is rendered using Unreal Engine 5, which certainly contributes to its visual fidelity and atmosphere. UE5 usually means pretty graphics.
Definitely. What about release details? Where and when can people actually play this? Is it out?
It is, on PC at least. According to the official information we pull, Sengoku Dynasty left early access on PC back on November 7, 2024.
Okay, so it's fully released on PC.
Yep. It's developed by Superkami and published by Toplitz Productions. They also have plans for a console release sometime in 2025.
Good to know for console players. Important dates for anyone looking to jump in. For PC players, what should they know about the system requirements? What kind of rig do you need?
Well, the sources list both minimum and recommended PC specs. Generally speaking, you're looking at needing a, let's say, mid-range PC from the last few years.
Okay.
Windows 10 64-bit is the OS. They list specific CPUs and GPUs, but the takeaway is something roughly equivalent to an Intel Core i5 or AMD Ryzen 5 processor and an NVIDIA GTX 1650 or AMD RX 570 graphics card minimum.
Right, minimum specs.
Or, for recommended, a newer Core i5 Ryzen 5 and an RTX 3060 Ti or RX 6700 XT. Both require 20 gigabytes of storage space, and crucially, the sources strongly recommend installing the game on an SSD.
Ah, the SSD recommendation. Pretty standard for open-world games these days, makes a huge difference.
Huge difference. Much smoother performance, less loading stutter.
Is it purely a solo experience, or can you build your dynasty with friends?
No, thankfully not just solo. The sources highlight the co-op mode. Allows you to play and build your dynasty with up to 3 companions.
Oh, cool. Up to 4 players total then.
Sounds like it, yeah. Which adds a whole different dimension to tackling these challenges, dividing up tasks and all that.
Playing with friends makes almost any game better, and it seems the game changed quite a bit during its early access period. You mentioned it left EA in late 2024.
Yes, the sources specifically call out the early access phase as being really impactful. Player feedback apparently shaped significant improvements.
Like what?
They mentioned systems like fences, roads, the citizen happiness system we talked about, how dynasty storage works, lots of UI enhancements, refining that combat prototype, and improving production and character progression systems. It all benefited from that period.
So it sounds like it evolved quite a bit based on players.
Yeah, it really highlights the value of that iterative development process, listening to the community.
Definitely. Okay, we've really gone from washing up on shore with nothing to, well, building a complex society with strategic regional influence. Quite the journey.
We've pieced together how you transition from those first desperate moments of survival and basic gathering through establishing your first functional village and managing its needs, mastering various crafts and resource loops, and then stepping onto the larger stage of building a dynasty and liberating the surrounding lands. It's a lot.
It's clear from everything in the sources that thriving in this game requires juggling quite a few plates. You can't just focus on one thing and ignore the rest.
Absolutely not. And hopefully this deep dive gives you that solid understanding of the core mechanics, the goals, and the journey you'll take. So you can either jump in prepared or just, appreciate the intricate simulation they've built.
Thinking about all those different systems, keeping your villagers happy, fed, and warm, exploring the world and fighting enemies, managing resources, crafting, and then that strategic layer of the Demi system on top.
Yeah, when you lay it all out.
It really raises an interesting question as you look at the totality of the game.
What's the real challenge?
Is the ultimate challenge in Sengoku Dynasty more about mastering the physical world? The landscape, the combat, the resource gathering? Or is the true test actually mastering the administrative logistics and the delicate balance of human needs within your growing dynasty?